happy not all the reporters are in Boston with some of the politicians, mostly Democrats. Did you guys see the new picture in the speaker's library? Did you see it right here? It's over here. Kyle, you got to go see it. It's against this wall. Yeah, Kyle's got to see this. This is a MERS exclusive now. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Wow, that's you, Trump. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's a beautiful picture. Yeah, well, I didn't say it wasn't in my living room. No, we have a beautiful picture we put up. Now, this used to be a picture, it was a black and white picture. We'll have to do the before and after. And it was a black and white picture. And, if Gorchow was here, he could tell me what it is. But, he never comes. He's just, I don't know why. I see. Yeah, Gorchow. What happens is he's, you lose touch when you never show up. But anyway, over here on this, he would tell us, because he knows a lot about the old stuff, over here he would tell us what that was. But there was some kind of picture of this room probably 80 years ago, and it was black and white and the split floors. I don't know if you ever looked at it, anyway, he said nobody cares about that. Maybe we could give it to Gongwer, they could put it up there in their office. But this one over here is a great photo, a modern photo, and a bipartisan photo of one of the greatest days in recent Michigan history, where Governor Whitmer and I and Leader Nesbitt joined President Trump at Selfridge Air National Guard Base for the announcement of our new fighter mission, which we're very proud of, one of the most modern fighters in the world. Probably the most modern. It was even better than the one we asked for. And so it's a beautiful picture. You'll have to put it on the live stream later, Gideon, but all the troops there. You have President Trump at the podium. But I think they'll keep this picture up for a long time because it's a bipartisan picture. Governor Whitmer is there. I'm there. General Rogers. It's a great picture, just showing what we can do together when we work across the aisle, bipartisan, like Governor Whitmer and I did with President Trump. So I hope you enjoy the picture. I don't know, when was the last time? That picture was there a long time. What do you think, Gideon? You've been here. Has Pluta been here longer than you, or have you been here longer than Pluta? Is that right? Wow, you've been here a long time. So that other picture was probably there for, well, the other picture, it was a black and white photo of what this room looked like probably 80 years ago or 100. Yeah, that was probably here a long time. Yeah, so we just figured, I don't know how long that picture was there, but I stare at this picture for 30 minutes and I didn't understand what this picture was because it's so different now. I think this hallway over here, and the people at home don't care about this as much as the Capitol insiders, but this wasn't there, this hallway out here, and this went further. It was, anyway. They can put that in, what? Oh, Zach would take it. Yeah, he likes those things, yeah. So anyway, people are gonna love this photo much more. And we bring in a lot of school groups and they're complimenting us a lot on the photo up here, because they're always coming in here and they're saying, we don't know who the current speaker is, and we solved that problem for them. Now they come in, they look at the color photo of me, which will be up there for 6 years until I'm no longer the speaker, something that Howard Nugent is very happy about, because you notice he's leaving. When I leave, he's leaving when the next person goes up. So Howard Nugent's family is very happy. We have 6 years. But the school groups come in and they see the color photo and they love it. And now they'll have this great picture for decades of this historic day. And that is going to keep Selfridge alive for another 40 years. So it's very possible this photo will stay up for those 40 years. And then when there's a new fighter mission, maybe they'll put it up. But we could do a lot more with, promoting bipartisanship here in the Capitol, and hopefully this photo is a reminder of what we can achieve with bipartisanship, something that I have a very good record on. So Anyway, I have a lot of things that I want to talk about, but I'll let you guys ask me some questions, and then if you don't cover them, I'll just start with a very long second monologue. So go ahead, Kyle. Oh, you mean the 9 bills that Joe Tate did not present to the governor when he was speaker? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And they never blame him, right, Kyle? They never blame Joe Tate. They just blame me. But I think it's good that you're bringing that up because, I read all of the reporting, and nobody talks about the fact that, I was speaker for 9 days, and for the first time in Michigan's history, the Senate sued the House. And I think if you want to look at why things are as challenging as they are, the Senate sued the House because they were mad about really Joe Tate, Democrat speaker, not doing his job, and they sue us. And as you know, the body spoke, Kyle. We put it up for a vote, and many Democrats, I looked across the aisle, and many Democrats, I saw them voting aye because they believe that this session we can't do anything about bills from the prior session. The body believes that only bills from the current session should be acted upon in that session. And you can take that to the extreme of 25 years ago a bill passes, can I give it to a new governor? And everyone would say no. Everyone would say you couldn't hold on to a bill for 25 years and then give it to a governor. So, the line that our body drew there is once the prior legislature ends, that is over. Those bills are dead. And so we've been, they sued us, and as you know, they were very embarrassed in the first court, very embarrassed there. And remember, they tried to make it very personal, just like everything else. You notice everything they say is about me. Everything is directed at me from them. And one thing I'll say about the press is very interesting. So if I criticize a Democrat, most of the time, you guys will put 4 or 5 words in there. And then if a Democrat criticizes me, they'll post every word. It's like if it's a 6-paragraph statement, you guys will put all 6 paragraphs in there most of the time, not always. So it's just kind of funny. So if you were to not watch the press conferences but read your reporting, you would actually think that I'm a nice person and the Democrats are very mean to me. So I'm not sure if that's the effect you guys are trying to have. Maybe I should thank you for that because I seem like a very reasonable, nice person because the things I say about them you guys don't print. It's very interesting. But we're not, we're going through court, and I think with the Court of Appeals, and they're going to have a hearing here pretty soon on their 3-judge panel. And I think we'll win that very easily, just like we did in the last court. And it'll probably end there, because why would you want to get embarrassed again after that? So, but I would say, when you're trying to dissect this year, the fact that for the first time in Michigan's history, the Senate sued the House, and the way they did it so personal, where they tried to serve me in front of the cameras and everything else, and they lost that. People forget when they're writing their stories that that's one of the main reasons that we are where we are, is they're suing us because they're really mad at their own members for failing to present bills. And I look at this, it's just amazing to see the dysfunction spilling over. I saw Rachel Hood come out and talk about a lot of the failed leadership of Joe Tate and the lack of, it was a very dysfunctional time. I know a lot of those members shared that sentiment at the time. They all knew. And I look at her and, I just say, look, I said this to her at the time. She could have voted no on the energy bill. Do you know what I mean? Like Rachel Hood could have voted no on the energy bill, and she would have eventually got her community solar because they needed her vote. So she really has no one to blame but herself for why her priority failed and why Joe Tate's priority prevailed. But the interesting thing is I think we have a real opportunity moving ahead to rewrite the energy law. I think you guys know that it's just now indisputable. They used to dispute this when I would say that electricity bills are going to go way up. No one disputes that anymore because of this policy, and it's really Rachel Hood's fault because she voted yes, but her and Joe Tate and every one of these Democrats are going to have to own that energy law. And you ask any expert, they're telling us now that your energy bill is going to go way up because of that energy law they passed to ban natural gas and ban fossil fuels by 2040. And so now that is a consensus position, we're really going to have to rewrite the energy law with a new modern energy law that prioritizes affordability and reliability. And I would just say, with all these data centers that are going to be coming in, it's going to be even more necessary to rewrite that energy law with something that really focuses on fossil fuels. And thankfully, what President Trump is doing, we see him keeping that coal plant open in Ottawa County, which is critical to our grid. We see him investing in Palisades and moving forward on the regulatory permitting there. We see him moving forward on Line 5 with the permitting there. So he's doing some things that are really critical in order to help us move forward with energy dominance. But we're going to have to do our part. What's that? Well, we'll take a look at that. Brian Begol's been doing a great job. We're very, I think he's been doing really well. You look at his committee, he's somebody who's been leading on so many issues. And what I love to tell people is when it goes to government operations, it's either going to move really quickly, it's not going to move, or it's a legitimate government operation. And I'm the first speaker that actually said, if the committee is called government operations, what if we sent government operations there? That's too simple for the politicians up here. And so I think there's a lot of great work that's going to go on in that committee. We have an energy committee led by Pauline Wenzel. You have natural resources with David Martin. We also have somebody, Dave Preston, who's doing a great job. So I think you'll see parts of these things across multiple committees.
Thus far what we've seen in your cause is just looking to repeal the Democrats, and you also specifically citing portions. Obviously that was something that moved with party line and full support from Democrats. Is there any sort of solution where we might be able to meet in the middle on that, address that, or is it really just kind of order intent to just get rid of that law if possible?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you asking that, and there's some assumptions in there, but that's okay. You're still more fair than a lot of the other press, and that's saying a lot, considering who your donors are. But I'll just say for us on the energy issue, and this is a really critical issue right now, and that's one of the reasons why government operations is going to be doing a big part of it. Yes, we should repeal the solar siting. The solar siting is very unpopular. You look at it, and basically they want to shove windmills and solar panels all over Michigan, utilizing this board. We're very excited for Shaquila Myers to be a part of the board, but part of her responsibility is going to be shoving windmills and solar panels all over the place because that's what that board is empowered to do, along with regulating the utilities. And I would just say for us, we all, yes, we want to repeal that law. And now when you look at the One Big Beautiful Bill and the great bill there, and you see some of these tax credits going away for wind and solar. Even if Shaquila and others want to shove windmills and solar panels all over the place, it's going to be a little harder to do because of those tax credits going away. So it's going to be more expensive to do wind and solar. But why should the government be subsidizing and forcing wind and solar when natural gas is domestic and it's plentiful and it's readily available? And if we have the right permitting policies and the right energy policies, we can really tap into this clean, efficient, affordable form of energy. Why do we want to be reliant on China for their wind and solar components when we could be reliable here? And it's much more affordable, and it doesn't require billions and billions of dollars to prop it up. Especially when you're seeing the demands from AI and from, if we want to compete in AI, and it's something we're trying to do, and we want to compete on data centers, we got to have natural gas. And so it's been our plan to rewrite a modern energy law. And I think right now it's really coming to a head with what you're seeing from this new consensus that this Democrat energy law that bans fossil fuels by 2040 is going to result in skyrocketing energy prices. There's no one disputing that now. And so we're really going to have to try to do something, if not this year, then next year or the year after, but if Whitmer won't do it. But I think we should try to do something soon. And that's going to be a focus for us as we approach the next year. Yeah, Beth, go ahead. Oh, well, thanks for asking that. So as you know, Beth, the Democrat budget in the Senate is very unbalanced. It's out of whack. It's billions of dollars different than the realities that we face today. And I look at it and say, this isn't even a document that we can use. So I've encouraged the Senate, why don't you go back and why don't you write a new budget that's based on the current situation? We hear Democrats talking about how the One Big Beautiful Bill affects our current state budget, but yet they don't update their budget to reflect the situation. They are relying on numbers from January. We saw new numbers come out in May that said your January numbers are wrong. And now with the One Big Beautiful Bill, all of you write that there are more implications for the state budget. So, okay, I'll just say this. I mean, what if I could pass a budget that's a $100 billion budget, okay? And I could bring it in and say, let's negotiate. And what would the Democrats say? They would say, this is not a real budget. It's a $100 billion budget. There's not $100 billion to spend. I don't see a difference between that and their budget, which is based on outdated information. And even then, they don't pay for everything. You look at that, they have like a $1 placeholder for a $3 billion roads plan. Right there is $3 billion out of balance. You start looking at, what was it, $1 billion that their political economist, David Zinn, said their own budget was out. And now with the One Big Beautiful Bill, there are more things that have to happen. So I've encouraged them, why don't you go back and develop a budget that's based on the real situation so we can negotiate. And that's what we're doing in the House. So I've given instructions to all of our leaders, all of our subcommittee chairs, and I've said, hey, go back with the budgets that you guys have been working on, and let's revise them based on the new numbers that we have after looking at the House fiscal analysis of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And we're going and we're doing that, and I'm getting those recommendations from them very shortly. And then you'll see us bring those out and move a budget very quickly. But, for people that are so excited to write stories about how the One Big Beautiful Bill is terrible for the state budget, I don't understand. Why don't you guys buy into the argument that you'd have to adjust your budget based on the One Big Beautiful Bill? It would make sense. It's actually the most sensible position anyone's taken is, let's look at what all the implications are of all these things that are changing, and let's put forward a real budget based on the real numbers that set the priorities, something Democrats haven't done. And we're going to fund the roads, we're going to fund education, and we're going to fund the Public Safety Trust Fund, and we're going to bring the state workers back to work. Yes, Elena?
What is your deadline to pass this tax review? How far in September do you think you still have time to negotiate with the Senate?
Well, if I told you, you wouldn't come to my press conferences anymore. Oh, wow. Would you bring Gorchow with you? Oh. Wouldn't it be fun to see the two of you there together? Imagine if they were playing off each other, how tough those questions would be. Well, I'm not going to tell you that, but I'm just saying we're going to have a budget very soon. Do I have a deadline? But why would I tell the press? You asked me a question. Your question was, what is your deadline for when you have to get a budget through in order to negotiate with the Senate? That was your question. I'm not going to tell you, But I will say our obligation is to get a state budget done by September 30th. And that's what, well, we're doing everything we can to meet that obligation, and that's why we dumped Alabas Farhat. I mean, you look at it, I think Alabas Farhat, who was the Democrat leader on appropriations, didn't have the support of his caucus. And so we're looking at him and saying, your caucus won't support you. We need to find somebody else. And so we went with somebody else. Very soon we're going to, and we're interviewing Democrats. And there's a few of them that are interested, and we're looking at them. And essentially what we want is somebody who's going to partner with us in good faith and honor their commitments. And it's okay if you can't make a deal, then just say you cannot make a deal. Don't say you can make a deal and then say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't. Okay. So we need somebody that's going to work in good faith. But secondly, we need someone who's going to represent the Democrats well, right? Because we want it to be a bipartisan budget. That's a good question, yeah. And I applaud Governor Whitmer, someone that I work very well with, and we are, really the two leaders working on this budget is Governor Whitmer and myself. And if the Democrats were smart, they would empower Governor Whitmer to lead them. She's much more popular than the legislative Democrats are. She knows how to win, and her and I have demonstrated that we know how to work together and make deals. So I think they'd be smart to empower her, and I think we would get a budget done very fast. If they empowered Governor Whitmer, I bet you we would get a deal done in 2 weeks minimum. It'd be very easy, but they're not empowering Governor Whitmer. And I'll say, let me answer your question. What was your question? Yeah, so I applaud Governor Whitmer for what she's doing to call for accountability and transparency in the earmark process. That's something that I put forward very early in our HEAT plan, the Hall Ethics Accountability and Transparency Plan. And I think you all know that's the biggest grassroots transparency movement in the history of the Capitol. And what we did in that is the House Republicans, we said we are going to require transparency on these earmarks. You must disclose them in advance in order to be eligible for funding. And we passed a House rule, remember, and the Democrats even voted for that requires that transparency. And so as we approach this budget process, transparency in the earmarks is something that is required according to our House rule. So we will only take up bills that comply with our House rule, which requires that transparency. Now, when you talk to people like Sarah Anthony and the legislative Democrats, their transparency is you disclose after the vote. And I think if you disclose after the vote, then you're going to keep running into these problems where there are projects that are not properly vetted and projects that do not pass the smell test, right? So I appreciate that, there's a movement our way, but these legislative Democrats still pushing for a disclosure after the vote is not good enough. We had hearings, as you know, and Nancy Jenkins Arno did a great job on those hearings, and her committee members, and they spent many hours here. And it's my view is we're not going to put anything in that budget that did not receive a public hearing. So, you know, they had to disclose, and then they had to have a public hearing. Well, Amos O'Neill attended, and I believe Karen Whitsett's office attended. And there could be other hearings, but, you know, I've conveyed that to Alabas Farhad at the time and other Democrats. If you don't participate in a public hearing, then we're not going to consider your request in the House budget. Because what my intent is to put those earmarks in the House budget, right? I want people to know these are the things that the House Republicans are advocating for. And I want those to appear in that House budget. And the number we've put forward is $100 million. That's what our target is for the legislative, we call them LDSIs. What is it? Legislative Directed Spending Item. Is that what it is? So, yeah, some guy in House Fiscal probably came up with that. You know, if I came up with it, it'd be a much better acronym. But LDSI, so these legislative directed spending items, you saw Governor Whitmer call for a cap, and I agree with her on that. And you saw we put forward $100 million, which, you know, I don't know what $100 million is out of, say, $80 billion, but it's a much lower cap than what you see in like the congressional cap that they have. And then I've called for the disclosure. Governor Whitmer has agreed with that. We saw her at the State of the State endorse that. We saw her recent statements to MERS where she doubled down on that. She's endorsed the concept of a cap, which is something I put forward. And then Governor Whitmer called for the Auditor General's office to take a more active role. And I think that's a very interesting idea and something that Chair Bolin and I are exploring. So we're really appreciative, I'd say, of Governor Whitmer's contributions to this conversation that House Republicans and myself started. And I just wish that legislative Democrats took it more seriously. And unfortunately for them, because of our House rule, they're just going to have to adapt to a more transparent earmark process.
Another question. Dr. Jim Messina, who was actually
Mm-hmm.
Representative Wenzel had all the bills. Were previously the Dr. Kirby removed after she was session as well. So you're talking some turmoil.
I think the Democrats are in turmoil. I mean, something that you guys haven't reported very well is, did you see how every single legislative Democrat voted to subpoena Elizabeth Hertel to appear before the House Oversight Committee? Or that most of the legislative Democrats voted to subpoena the DNR? And we saw the same thing with these subpoenas of the Attorney General. You know, one of the things that I've pushed as the Speaker is bringing back legislative oversight and restoring the balance of power. And these departments of state government have run amok for months and years with nothing, especially the last 2 years under a Democrat trifecta. So I thought it was more interesting than you guys did that what does it mean that every single legislative Democrat and Republican voted to subpoena Elizabeth Hertel to appear because she won't appear before the legislative committees? I think it's interesting. Why are they voting to subpoena the DNR? And they're also voting to subpoena the Attorney General for a lot of things that she's doing where, you know, if you're a Republican organization, they prosecute you. If you're a Democrat organization, they never decide to charge you or not. You know, that sits on the Attorney General's desk for years. No. So, as I'm saying, you look at that and you look at the Democrats, and then you saw Governor Whitmer come out at the State of the State and say, hey, I think we should prohibit kids from using cell phones in schools. And so I called Winnie Brinks. And you people don't think I talk to Winnie Brinks, but I actually talk to her all the time. And I called Winnie Brinks probably 3 weeks ago, and I said, look, you know, this budget is not working very well. And so I think it would be really good if we let's do something else, okay? So if our goal is to build trust, and you guys sued me and you're losing, and that's causing a lot of distrust. So if we're going to build trust, why don't we work on something simple, okay? We had a Polhanky bill on cell phones. We had a Tisdale bill on cell phones. Governor Whitmer had asked us to work on it. I spoke with RFK Jr. recently, and he asked us to work on it as well. And so we're looking at this and we're saying banning cell phones in schools is an issue that should bring together Republicans and Democrats. And when you talk to parents, they agree with it. And so I said to Winnie Brinks, I said, look, I just want you to know, there's a deal. Polhanky and Tisdale have worked out. I'm willing to move the bills. I just want you to know I'm willing to move the bills. The deal required an additional Polhanky bill, and we just said, look, give us the number, and we'll just drop it in our bill, because you can do it with a bill request number. You don't have to do it with the actual bill number. So give me the bill request number, we'll drop it in, and we'll do it. I thought that was a real opportunity to bring people together. What we saw kind of unfold on the day of the vote was, I think, the Democrats, in their view, seeing an opportunity in their mind to try to, I don't know if you want to say embarrass Mark Tisdale, but I think that what Mayor Duggan, if you guys have seen what Mayor Duggan's saying, it's very compelling. I mean, what Mayor Duggan says is essentially, because it's Mark Tisdale, because the Democrats don't want Mark Tisdale to get a public act, because they view him as a swing seat, they tanked the bill instead of voting for something that would help all of our kids and helping Governor Whitmer with one of her #1 priorities. So I looked at it and said, every single legislative Democrat voted against something that Governor Whitmer asked us to do in the state of the state. And Democrats backed out of a deal because, according to Mayor Duggan, because it was Mark Tisdale's idea, and they don't want Mark Tisdale to get a win. I look at it further and say they probably they thought they were making me look bad. They thought, because they make it very personal. It's not personal with me, right? That's why I'm such a great deal maker, and that's why I have such a record of getting things done across the aisle, is I don't make it personal, and Governor Whitmer doesn't make it personal. These legislative Democrats make it personal, and the people that are being punished for that are the kids. So legislative Democrats wanted to get a shot at me and Mark Tisdale, and so what they did is they said every kid in Michigan, I'd say what they did is they said, we're not going to prohibit the kids from having cell phones in the classroom. And so, there's some districts taking action, but in every one of those districts, when you walk in and you see the kids on their phones in the classroom, not paying attention, as our reading scores continue to be low and our math scores continue to be low, really what legislative Democrats said is we're going to sacrifice our kids' education in order to score political points against Matt Hall and Mark Tisdale. I never would have done that when I was minority leader. We didn't do stuff like that with bills like that. And ultimately, I think the Democrats are really going to regret that vote. I've said to MLive, which does a very good job, and MLive watches us on the stream, so hello MLive. They do a great job, but what MLive wrote is accurate. Because of the legislative Democrats voting against the bill to ban kids from using cell phones in the school, we're not going to have a ban on cell phones in the classroom this year. And so this year, kids will be able to use their cell phones in the classroom unless they're in a district that bans it. Yeah, but every single legislative Democrat voted against it. And so you're talking about dysfunction. I would say that's dysfunction in the Democrat Party. This is Governor Whitmer's #1 priority on this, and they tanked her. She talked about it in the State of the State, And then I think you look at what's going on with the deal. I mean, there was a deal. I'm shocked to see Pohanky lie about that. They had a bill, we had a bill. Like I said, I reached out to Winnie Brinks. I told her in good faith that we would do this. And they went back on that deal in order to what they thought was embarrass me and Mark Tisdale. But the real people losing are the kids who are not going to get an education as well because they're going to be distracted in the classroom. And that's just sick coming from these legislative Democrats. And they're really going to regret that vote, honestly. They're going to regret it a lot. Yeah, Beth. Do you think that the One Big Beautiful Bill affected the state budget? I'm just asking you. Do you think that or not? Well, yeah, you do think that. And do you think that the January numbers are accurate? The answer to that is no, you don't. Nobody thinks the January numbers are accurate because they're April numbers. So what I'm saying to you, Beth, is the numbers they're using are out of whack, and their budget is billions of dollars out of whack. And so their budget is not a reliable document to use for negotiations. So what I told them was, look, let's start with the cell phone bill. I think we can work on something that's bipartisan, that's not controversial, and they tanked that. So we needed somebody else other than Alabas Farhat involved, and we're working, like I said, with our subcommittee chairs on new targets that reflect this budget. But what I'll tell you about the budget, we can fund a $3.1 billion roads plan in this budget. We can cut taxes in this budget, and I'm talking specifically about the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and really amplifying the effect of the One Big Beautiful Bill and making sure that's in there. I think we can fund the Public Safety Trust Fund to finally put police on the streets in a lot of these local communities with very high violent crime rates, and these are mostly Democrat districts. That's another one where Democrats are tanking it in the Senate, and as a result, they want to make Mayor Duggan look bad, and they again want to make me look bad. So the Democrats in the Senate are preventing this Public Safety Trust Fund from happening because they don't like Mike Duggan's running for governor. And the consequence of that is more violent crime in their own cities. It's amazing if you think about it. So just to finish, so on this state budget, we can do all these things. We can fund education at record levels, which we showed you in our school aid budget, record levels, the most they've ever had. We can fund it, we can fund public safety, we can fund roads. We can do all of that in the budget, and we can absorb all of these things in the One Big Beautiful Bill if we set priorities, which is what we're doing. You're going to see those budgets very soon, and we're actually going to be in the strongest position to negotiate because we actually have a public plan that's up to date. And you guys will love that the earmarks are in there too. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Should there be a new revenue estimating conference so that you've got numbers that are solid to make the budget? Your whole point here is that we don't really know. And then you're saying there are all these things that, well, we can do with the budget, but even you're saying we don't really know. Should there be a new revenue estimate?
Well, I think what we're doing is we're basing our budget on the most up-to-date numbers, right? Which if you...
Most up-to-date numbers aren't up-to-date.
Well, that's an interesting thing to say because in May when we had the most accurate numbers, then you guys thought it was okay for the Senate to use a January estimate. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just saying for us, we're using what we have, which is the House Fiscal Report on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and we're using the May numbers, which are the newest numbers. And if new numbers came, then we would base our budget based on that too. I would just say we can't even get these people to agree to pass a bill to ban cell phones in schools. So I'm not sure we'd be able to get them to agree to a new revenue estimating conference,
They
but
don't have to agree, but one person can call.
I see. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Mr. Speaker, let me forget Democrats for a minute. Multiple members of your caucus have told me that they believe that we're not going to see a budget pass out of this legislation after the governor passes right up until
Yeah.
right until September 30th.
And that's a different question than what was asked earlier, right? The first question was about the House. Now, what you're talking about is the entire body, the House, the Senate, the governor, right? That's what you're, yeah, exactly, which is different than what we were talking about earlier. So, and our goal is to get that done by September 30th, right? That's the deadline. And that's why we had to dump Alabas Farhat, because we weren't getting anywhere with him, because number one, I don't think we could count on him to follow through on a deal. And secondly, his caucus wouldn't follow him. So we need somebody that's going to work with Governor Whitmer and I to get a deal done by September 30th that also can deliver some votes, and that was not Alabas Farhat.
So to kind of clarify here, House Republicans cannot pass budget because House Democrats and Senate Democrats are not working with you guys?
No, I told you that we're working on the new targets. I gave every subcommittee in the House new targets and said, we're going to have to do this based on the new estimates. We're working through those estimates, and that's how it should work. Senate Democrats are working off of numbers from January. So when we come into the negotiations, they're going to be way out of whack. They already are. They're $3 billion out of whack. I think if the media was a little more down the middle, they'd probably point out that their budget is very out of whack and really can't be used for negotiations. I mean, if you're, you know what I'm saying, we can negotiate, but if we negotiate, they're not using their budget for the basis of the negotiations. Well, we have nothing to negotiate off of out of them. I want to be clear. I have nothing that I can use to negotiate from the Democrats, because their budget is $3 billion out of balance. So if we looked at their budget, we wouldn't be able to use that for negotiations because their budget is way out of whack. They don't fund roads. They don't account for the most up-to-date revenue estimates, which are much different, and they don't account for the one big beautiful bill. So I can't use their document either. The benefit is when we put our document out, it's based on the most up-to-date numbers, and it's going to be balanced, and it's something that we could actually use.
Just to clarify, to make sure that I have information.
Yeah.
Does this mean that you are unwilling to actively negotiate with the Senate until they pass a revised budget?
I've encouraged them to, number one, empower their leader, Governor Whitmer. I think that if they empowered Governor Whitmer, we'd have a deal done very quickly. Like I said, probably in 2 weeks. Well, I told you, I talked to Winnie Brinks. You guys don't think I talk to her. I talk to her all the time. I bet you there'll be a story tomorrow. It's like Matt Hall doesn't talk to Winnie Brinks. You know, you guys love writing that story, but I talk to her all the time. I talk to the governor all the time. And I think for us, looking at this great legislation that passed at the federal level on the One Big Beautiful Bill, that was what, July 4th? We're looking through that. We got the House fiscal report on that, what, last week, was it? And so we're making some adjustments. And when we come back, we're going to pass House budgets. And they're going to be perfect budgets because they're going to be based on the most up-to-date numbers. And that makes more sense. Why would you, like I said, if I passed a $100 billion budget, I'd get criticized for that because it's out of balance. When they pass something that's billions of dollars out of balance, somehow nobody sees that in this room except for me. Yeah, Kyle.
Mr. Speaker, you got 5 months left until the end of the year.
Yeah.
You guys have passed a total of 6 bills to the governor. What does a successful year look like to you?
Yeah.
Meaning that you only have 5 more months to
That's a great question.
what does a successful
Yeah. Isn't that a great question? Great job on that question, Kyle. That was a good question. Didn't you think that was a good question, Gideon? He's not like mixing around what I said and stuff. He's just asking a question. I appreciate that. So I think for us, what a successful year looks like is getting a roads deal. We're doing that without raising taxes. I've shown how we can do that. I think it's really important that we include that in the budget. Hopefully, the media agrees with me that a budget that does not include roads is not a complete budget. Because if we're intending to inject $3 billion in roads, then our budget should show that. But the reason they don't do that is because they want to blame other people for tough decisions. And that's a media narrative that you guys are falling into. They aren't going to cut the $3 billion out of their budget. They're going to let me do it, and then they're going to blame me, okay? But what we're doing is actually the transparent thing is we're putting out our public position on what those cuts are, and we're going to show you how you do it, okay? So when you see it, hopefully you guys all praise me and say, oh my gosh, because what the Senate wants to do is they want to have that conversation in private, and then they want to share in the blame. And if it's not going to happen, then they don't want you to know what their position is. We're showing you on every one of these issues what our position is. And so you're going to see it in the budget, and you guys will have a lot of fun with it when you see it probably. And so for us, though, we're going to fix the roads without raising taxes. We're going to ensure that we fund or that we get the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. I think ensuring that our working families have that relief and we amplify the Trump tax cuts, it'll really magnify the impact on our workers. I look at it and I want to see the Public Safety Trust Fund done. I think we need to make those investments in our local districts now. Our local, when I say local districts, our police departments, our local police departments, I want to see those investments made now. I've been there in these Democrat counties and Democrat cities, and I've talked to their police chiefs and their mayors and their sheriffs, and they've told me, we will use the funding now. We will hire police, we will get them the equipment we need, and we will start fighting violent crime in our communities. And Democrats in the Senate are preventing that from happening. So I think funding the Public Safety Trust Fund, funding the roads, getting a budget done on time, bipartisan. I'm looking forward to that bill signing with Governor Whitmer and I to deliver that bipartisan budget on time and doing it in a way that funds our roads and is a smaller budget than it was last year. To me, that's really a successful year. And then, I'd like to see the Senate take action on some of our education ideas. You look at what we're doing on making real life skills in education, allowing dual enrollment for skilled trade programs, making phonics the official standard of Michigan, bringing more flexibility to the Michigan merit curriculum, having a better process for testing where we can actually use the tests, putting more accountability into the classrooms through measuring in an easy-to-use way on the website, the performance of schools. We passed all of these bills through the House months ago with 90 votes, 100 votes. I'd like to see some of that move. So I think for me, that's a successful year. But really what I'm looking at is, the earned sick leave, the paid sick leave, and the tip credit. I negotiated that deal with the Democrats. I received all kinds of awards for that deal. I mean, from almost every group in Lansing, they gave me an award for that and said, this is the most significant legislation that has been passed for business in this body in many years. And we want to thank you, Matt Hall, for leading this. SBAM had a recent meeting. Their membership gave me a 100% approval rating. That's even higher than my approval rating in the MERS survey. That was a high one. I think it was one of the highest you guys had ever seen. So as we're going through it and we're looking, I've negotiated some very significant bipartisan legislation. We got that done. And it saved a lot of people's jobs, and it ensured that workers have the paid sick leave they need, but also a job, and it ensured that the restaurants stay open. And so we can do that again. And I want to do that on significant legislation. I'd say if you get a roads deal done, if you address public safety, if you make some real good changes to education, and you set better priorities in this budget, you eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse in our welfare system, and you actually deliver a budget smaller than last year, I think even MERS would say some positive things. No. Exactly, yeah. And that's okay. I mean, I think if we accomplish those things and it was that small of a number of bills, I don't know if Rurink would say good things, but I think some of you would say good things, you know. Maybe not Rurink. Rurink is tough on me. He's a great guy, but he's very tough on me. Yeah, well, there's a lot of interest in Witset. You know, a lot of people think that she should be considered. You know, I want to congratulate her on a big win last night in Detroit. I believe she took first place. Is that still the case, or did she take second? Is it second? Yeah. It was like the 2020 election. You know, you go to bed and then the results are different when you wake up. So it was, well, we congratulate her on making it to the general. And the other guy is this radical left socialist. Is that the other guy? What? He was endorsed by the Socialist Party. Is that the guy, or was that a different one? I don't know these people, yeah. I know Witset. And I know in her district, they really respect her. And you saw that in the results last night, doing as well as she did. And I don't know, you know, a lot of us I go back and forth with Gideon. I say, Gideon, do we want her to win or not? I mean, you want people to achieve their goals, right? And we want that for all of our members. And so, you know, we were very sad to see Helena Scott lose, right? That was too bad. But you know, Karen Witset has worked really hard in her district and is highly respected in Detroit, and she personally knows all of these people. She's done so much for them in their lives. And so she's really a strong candidate. But there are other Democrats too that are interested and are interviewing, you know. And well, I don't, you know, you'll tell Puri. I don't know if I want Puri to know yet. So, you know, he's probably in Boston with all the other politicians. You know, do you see this? They're all in Boston. Is he, you don't think he watches? I don't, yeah. Well, he probably wouldn't know how to find it. Did you guys see, by the way, that Puri, you know, he has somebody now who comes in and turns on the lights every morning? I don't know if you noticed that, because he's not there. And one thing I would just say about Puri, and when he says things about me, you guys print it. 8 paragraphs, you print it. 20 paragraphs, you print it. And then if I say something, it's 4 or 5 words. And whatever the worst 4 or 5 words I say are, you guys, and so that people say, I think he's complimenting Puri. You know, I've gotten that before. So what I'd say about Puri, I just say, you know, you look at this guy, and I think for him to really misrepresent to his caucus about what we were trying to do on the school budget, you know, we tried by July 1 to get a real bipartisan school budget done. I was trying to tie that to roads to bring the Senate back to get the budget done by July 1. And I think when you look at some of these letters that are going out from schools, you start to say, you know, there are consequences of the fact that Senate Democrats walked away from the budget negotiations on schools on July 1, right? And now there's confusion in some of these districts on are they getting the free lunch? Are they not? Now, remember, our plan gives the districts so much money that every single one of them that wants to provide the free lunches will be able to do it. But we had something very generous on the table, and I read the comments from Democrats, and Farhat and Puri are both lying about it. This was a very generous plan that met the Democrats very far on their priorities. And they tanked it because, again, they want to blame me. They want to make me, they think they're accomplishing something by blaming me. There are consequences for that. And then when we put on the table this deal that was in place with the Senate and on the phones, they tanked that too. And they asked the Senate to back them up on it because they think it helps them politically. And so everyone's lying over there now about what happened. And the kids are suffering because of it, because they're going to have phones in the classroom. I look at, there was a specific Denise Spencer bill on fireworks that we offered them. There was an Angela Whitwer bill that we offered them. Now, when I was minority leader, they never would have given us anything like that on a trade. I said, look, if these are two important bills to your caucus, we'll run them today. We want you to do the cell phone bill. There's an agreement on that. And Puri, from what I understand, went into his caucus and told him a completely different story. And now that a lot of these House Democrats are getting the facts, they're actually questioning him even more. And we're starting to hear those calls again from them that, you know what, we were better off with Tate. So it's amazing to see. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah, so I have great communication with the governor and with the Trump administration, and normally when she goes in, she'll talk to me about it, and I give her a lot of credit for that. That's one thing with the governor. I give her credit. She doesn't play this game of hide the ball. I think that's why we get along so well, is I'm straight with her and she's straight with me. And I think if other Democrat leaders learned from her, they would do a lot better in elections. And so I give her credit for that. And then also, President Trump, his administration, talked to me about it before it happened. So, the governor's the governor, right? And so, she's going to have some meetings that I'm not part of. I get that, right? Every one of these governors talks to President Trump. They don't admit it. And then there are times where I'm involved too. And I'm grateful that President Trump and her have brought me into some of those. And then I go and meet with people over there too, and I don't include her, so it's fine that she's the governor. I think we have some, I'll just say this, you look at this, what was this analysis, the CRC analysis, that one was, I asked the question, who paid for it? Did they disclose that or not? Who pays for the CRC analysis? Do they get paid to do it? I don't know. Do they accept money from people to? Okay. I see. So other nonprofits that politicians are part of accept money, and you guys believe, like when Joe Tate's C4 accepts money, that also isn't influenced? Do you guys believe that? Because a lot of your reporting suggests that you think there's a tie between the money that's written and the action. So a lot of people think that about CRC, but I don't know. That's why I'm asking you guys. Is somebody, depending on who their donors are, they write this report. And, you may want to be equally suspect. If you're suspect of the politicians, you could be suspect of CRC too. So I'm a little suspicious of this report. But what I'll say about it is, the Trump tax cuts are going to spur research and development and manufacturing in Michigan and across the country. And I think they're going to have especially a positive impact on Michigan. You guys know we're a very heavy research and development state. We're the world leader in automotive engineering and R&D, and we want to stay there, and this is going to help us. I can't help but say, like when we helped a bipartisan deal with Governor Whitmer, another one I negotiated to do the research and development tax credit, nobody said, this is a $100 million cut to Michigan's budget. Nobody said that. But when the one big beautiful bill does it, then they say that. So we're going to see research and development, we're going to see manufacturing, and we're going to see them booming because of that. Now, the only thing you see in these reports is the the tax cut portion of that, but you don't see the economic growth part. And then in terms of the Medicaid situation, when I look at the proposal, what actually happened, it's actually a very measured approach over time to kind of wean the states off of some of these scams that they've been using to game the system to get additional tax dollars that were never intended to pad the bottom lines of hospitals. Then secondly, I will just say it's very appropriate to require people to work, seek education, or volunteer their time in order to get the benefit. Most people don't like that there's 40-year-old able-bodied men living in their parents' basements collecting all these welfare programs. I'd also point out that if we accurately pay out our food stamp benefits, then we won't get penalized. So that's one of the reasons we want to bring Elizabeth Hertel into the House Oversight Committee, and it's probably one of the reasons all the Democrats voted to force her to come in, is stop paying out fraud, stop paying out to illegal aliens, figure how can we legislatively do more to get you to pay out the food stamps to the people that are eligible so we don't get fined. And I'd say where Whitmer and I would differ is I think it's completely appropriate that if they're misusing the tax dollars, right? The federal government gives us this money to give out food stamps, and if the state is not following the law and they're paying out to people that are not eligible, then the federal government should penalize us, because we need an incentive to actually spend the dollars appropriately, to eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse. And then on Medicaid, work requirements are completely appropriate. And you know, I would agree with them that we'd have more money to spend if we're given the 3-year waiver by RFK Jr. And Dr. Oz on the Medicaid, on the you know, this hospital tax scam. So if we were given a 3-year waiver on that, we would have more revenue. And that's helpful to see, are we getting it or not when we're doing the budget? That's helpful. Now the you know, this what is it, CRC report, yeah.
Agree with the waiver request? Would you like to see the administration waive that?
Well, the CRC report assumes that we don't get it. And that's why it's 1.1 billion. So in their report, they assume, like, you lay out, I think they say 400 million for that. And so that's why their number is different than House Fiscal. I would just say, you know, I understand why Governor Whitmer asked for it. I agree with her that we would have more revenue to spend if we had the waiver. But I'm comfortable with the way things are now without the waiver. So if we don't get the waiver, we can do all of our priorities in the budget. There's so much waste, fraud, and abuse in this state budget, something that Matt Maddock has been really spearheading for us, identifying, and he's doing a great job. I mean, the government has grown 43% under Governor Whitmer. So under Governor Whitmer, spending has increased 43%. Our people tell me that in many cases, some of these people that are getting the Healthy Michigan are getting better services than people that have jobs and are making above the income threshold. So I just say we can look at what are the benefits that we're offering, and are those benefits in line with what other people get in their health insurance? You can look at those things, and then, you know, the hospitals will come up with another way to make money, especially since this thing just ramps down by 0.5% a year. They have plenty of time before this tax is going away, whether it's with or without the waiver, that they'll be able to come up with another way to make very high profits. Yeah. Well, it is a scam, because what they do is the Medicaid was never intended to be done this way, where you create a fake tax on the hospitals in order to make it look like there's more more money in this to pull in more money from the federal government so to pad the hospital's bottom line. It's a gimmick in order to get more money from the federal government. And because that was not the intent of the law, was to create a fake tax to draw down more revenue well, let me say that differently. It's a fake tax to game the Medicaid system, to take more taxpayer money into Michigan, to inflate the Medicaid system. That's what it is. That was not what was intended. But what I appreciate about what President Trump and the Congress did in the One Big Beautiful Bill is they didn't say, we're going to eliminate this overnight. They said, we're going to gradually reduce it by 0.5%. It's like a 6% tax. We're going to take 0.5% off a year over, how many years is that? And that's going to give the hospitals time to adjust. And they can adjust, and they can come up with a different way to make profits. And so that, to me, is a sensible way to do it. And so at some point, Michigan is going to have to adjust our Medicaid system to reflect the fact that, we're either going to, we're just going to have to adjust it to reflect this new reality, and that's okay. We can look at what other state or what other insurance plans provide. I mean, remember, this is free, in many cases, health care or very low-cost health care for people that some of them become dependent on, okay? And we can say, like, if we're going to be generous to you and we're going to give you free health care or very low-cost health care, then these benefits are going to be in alignment with the commercial standards. And in some cases, our people are telling us they're actually better. And so you can look at that and say, look, if Michigan has to pay more of this in the future, then what does it look like? And that's what every employer is doing, is their health costs go up. You don't see them, when their costs go up, because every employer is dealing with the same thing, and they adjust their benefits, and they adjust their copays, and they do this stuff. They look at generic drugs. They do all these things. And so that's what we're doing, is we're looking at the program, and we're saying, what would put this more in alignment with other health plans? And, how could you administer great benefits, the best benefits we can afford to people, but also respect the taxpayers and look at the fact that this system, and I want to say this is like 30% of the entire Michigan state budget. And this would be an interesting thing for MERS or Gongwer or somebody to research is, what percentage of the Michigan state budget was Medicaid every year? And pick some years and look at it. And what I think you'd find is, as a percentage of the state budget, as a percentage of this federal spending, the Medicaid program is exploding. Okay, the Medicaid program is growing exponentially. I mean, like I said, it's $25 billion, which equates to about 30% of our state budget. And so what they're saying is, what President Trump is saying and what Republicans are saying is, we want to preserve his benefit, and we want it to go to the people it was intended for, which are the truly needy, and not able-bodied adults that are living in their mom's basement playing video games. So that's why they put in work requirements. That's why they ban illegal aliens. And that's why they're getting rid of some of these scams that are padding the profits of a lot of these hospitals, because they want to preserve this for the people it was intended for. And we still have a lot of obligation to pay for a lot of other things like roads and education and public safety. So that's what we're trying to do here. And so if they're getting out of whack benefits, we should look at adjusting some of those. Yeah, Simon.
On that topic, Mr. Speaker, it's not just the Citizens Research Council that says this
Yeah.
is what they reflect.
And you should find out who's paying them, because, you do a good job of looking into that.
It's Kaiser Family Foundation and other organizations
Uh-huh.
as well who are also saying it makes you fly.
Uh-huh.
Now, Michigan doesn't make up the $450 million that generates.
Yeah, we're going to base our information on the House Fiscal Report. And so, like I said, we're going to, you look at that and you see they estimate it's about, what, a $600, $700 million hit. They say hit, but it's mostly because of the tax cuts, and it's mostly because of the what I would describe as the, they're paying out these SNAP benefits to people that are not eligible, so there's a little impact there. Most of the Medicaid hit is not in this year. Like I said, I'm really okay with us getting a waiver because I understand the argument that we're going to get more revenue as a result, right? I mean, that there will be more revenue. I'm also okay if we don't get the revenue. Either way, we're going to have a plan that makes sure Medicaid is something that is sustainable and available to the people it's intended for, and we're going to fund our roads. We're going to put $3 billion into our roads, and we're really going to try to zero in on some of these tax cuts. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, so we can really amplify President Trump's tax cuts. We're going to ensure that schools get record funding, and they're going to have, unfortunately, the kids are going to be able to use cell phones in many places because of Senate Democrats and House Democrats. Yeah. Sure. This isn't like Benson where somebody's feeding you those questions, is it? Okay. All right. Okay. And they're calling this the triangle. Have you heard that? Yeah. They're calling it the triangle. It's Speaker Hall, Governor Whitmer, and Winnie Brinks. And they're calling it the triangle now. It's very interesting because, we had some meetings with Puri, and he never talked. So I think we just said we're going to do the triangle instead. I really, and what was your question? Since July 1st with the triangle. I would say that there's a lot of unilateral talks going on. So, what I think would be really helpful is if the Democrats got behind Governor Whitmer and empowered her to lead them, and we had more of a Democrat and Republican negotiation. I give Senator Nesbitt a lot of credit in his caucus. I mean, those guys have had our back 100%. I saw some recent comments Roger Victory made, and he's 100% in alignment with us. So the Republicans are unified, and we can put forward one budget position, and I think the Democrats would be best served to iron out their differences, empower Governor Whitmer to lead you, and we'll get a budget done very fast. But if I'd say that, there's a lot of the parallel conversations going on. So a number of conversations with the governor, some conversations with Brinks. I know you don't think I talked to Brinks. You want to write that story so bad, but you'll write it whether I say it or not. You'll write it. And you'll find some anonymous source that says I don't talk to her. But we talk, and we've had conversations, but it's really hard without positions that are using the up-to-date numbers. So we'll see what happens. So.
Do you agree with Senator Victory that a government shutdown would be a good thing?
I think we're going to get a bipartisan budget done, and I'm really looking forward to standing there next to Governor Whitmer with a bipartisan budget by the deadline that funds roads without raising taxes, funds education, funds the Public Safety Trust Fund, brings the state workers back to work, solves this situation with Medicaid where we're giving good benefits to people, but we're understanding the cost too, and is a smaller budget than last year. That's really what that's what I think is a good thing. You asked if I agreed with him. I said, I think you asked if I think that's a good thing. I said, look, I think it'd be that's what I think about is how much fun that bill signing is going to be when we do all of that together, and then And then it'll be like when we pass the sick leave and the tip credit, I'll go on off the record the next day, and they'll talk about it for 2 minutes, and then they'll say, what have you done for me lately? You know, it'll be fun. I look forward, and you'll probably be on that panel, Elena. It'll be fun. Anything else? All right, well, hey, we're going to have fun, and I'm doing off the record Friday, so we're going to have a great time. No one knows where Brinks is, probably only me, because I talked to her, but you know, a lot of these guys are in Boston, you know, NCSL, but not us. We're working, so thank you, media. Hopefully we gave you something to write about. And it's great to have you here, Kyle. We love when the principals come. So cool.